64% of sales reps spend their time not selling. Salesforce just came out with their recent state of sales report, and I want to go through and share with you a little bit today. My name's Zac Dingee. I run a solar sales company that does over $50 million a year in sales. And today I'm going to break down what this 64% of time is spent on, what you can spend it on better. I'm going to be talking to if you're a sales rep or a sales leader. If you're a sales rep, where you're wasting your time, how to be better, how to fix that. And then for the sales leader, we're going to talk about how you can implement software into this, how you can incentivize around productivity, and basically just how to fix this overall. So I want to show you what's on the screen right here, which is, this is page 18 of the State of the Sales report from Salesforce. And if you look here on this diagram, 64% of time is spent on non-selling and 36% of time is spent on selling. So let's categorize what that actually means. And here it says 25% is on administrative tasks, 16% on service tasks, 7% on traveling, 4% on training, 6% on internal company meetings, 7% on downtime, 24% connecting with clients or prospects in person, and 12% connecting with clients or prospects virtually. If less than 40% of your time is spent on selling, you probably aren't a high producing sales rep. And so let me categorize what are the 7 things you could be spending your time on if you are a sales rep. Number 1 is prospecting, meaning if you're a door knocker, that means you're going out and cold calling. If you're calling your leads, if you're cold calling, if you're reaching out to warm clients, if you're at a state fair or at some kind of event where you're promoting the business, that's all prospecting. So that is, you're trying to garnish leads. They're not a lead yet, but you're trying to go out and prospect for new leads. That's one thing you can do as a sales rep. Number 2 is obviously selling. How much time you spend in the house. And if you look at this data, on average, in an 8-hour workday, a sales rep is spending less than 2 hours actually selling their product. So that means your job is to be a mechanic and you're only working on cars for 2 hours of the day. If your job is to be a sales rep and you're only selling for 2 hours of the day, the majority of your day is you not doing your job by definition. So number 2 is selling. That's in-a-house selling, that's over the phone selling, that's virtual selling, whatever your kind of sales is. That's what number 2 is. Number 3 is administration work. Administration work is usually the silent killer. If you look here, 25%, that's actually the largest single thing on here is administrative tasks. 25% is spent on admin work, meaning you're updating CRM, you're going in there and you're logging your data or changing something in there, you're emailing back and forth, you may be working on service stuff. And let's just be clear, if you spend 25% of your time doing administrative work, for every month, you lose a whole week of work because that's 25% of your month. It's an entire week of basically not working. If you look at a year, that's an entire quarter of not working. That's a huge problem. If your job is to sell, you gotta sell. So administrative work, that's number 3. Number 4 is traveling. This one's tough because for a lot of people, it says here 7% of time on average is spent on traveling. For a lot of people, traveling may be part of their job. If you're B2B, so if you got to go drive to your distributor or you got to go drive somewhere that's an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours away, it's a lot of wasted time. It's tough. Or if you're knocking on doors like a lot of what our guys do, you got to spend sometimes hours and hours driving to each different territory to run an appointment or to knock, and you might spend 4 or 5 hours in the car some days, which is more than half of your day. So that one's tough. Traveling, we're going to talk about that again and how to kind of solve for all of these at the end. And I'm just giving you right now what each one is. Next one is training. It says here 4% of time is spent on training. That is the equivalent of if you're a sports athlete and you're in the NBA and you played games 96% of the time and then trained 4% of the time. You probably wouldn't be very good. If you look at the real numbers of what athletes do, they're training for more than 60, 70, 80% of their time playing that sport. And so 4% on training, probably not a good idea, probably shows that you're not a good rep. And so that number's got to go up, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. Number 6 is meetings. Very important. I think a lot of companies waste a lot of time in meetings and just literally have meetings to have meetings about having meetings, and it's just pointless. And so that's where they can spend some of their time. And then lastly, number 7 is what I titled pissing off, which they put in here downtime, 7%. I'd argue that's a lot more for most sales reps, but that is just you scrolling on your phone, you not working, you kind of BSing or hanging out or doing whatever. That's downtime or you just not working. So those are the 7 things you can be doing as a sales rep. And like I said, based on this report, almost all of those are not selling. There's really only one on the list that's true selling, and the rest is you wasting your time. Now that we know the 7 things you can be doing, I want to now talk about what you should be doing instead and how to break this down. If you are a sales rep, let's talk about you first. So if you're a sales rep, prospecting, selling, admin work, traveling, training, meetings, and downtime. If you are not spending 60% or more of your time on prospecting and selling, you will never be successful as a sales rep. So your goal in watching this video, and by the end of this video and your schedule for the rest of your sales career, needs to be a minimum of 60% of time spent on selling and prospecting. And so that's how you should structure your day. The easiest way to do this is to structure those 2 things and then put everything else around it. Meaning, when you look at your calendar, you should have time blocks every single day for prospecting and selling. And you want to break it up. For a lot of our top sales reps, I run a solar company, like I said, and almost everyone in the company is door to door. The way they do it is in their mornings, they're getting done with their admin work. So in the mornings, they're logging on at 9, 10 a.m. and they're busting out their admin work within an hour. So it's done for the day. They don't have to worry about it. And then now they can go out into the field. Usually by 12 o'clock, they're out in the field. From 12 to 4, from 12 to 4, they're knocking on doors. And from 4 to 7, they're running appointments. And so they structure their day where 4 to 7, or 12 to 4 and 4 to 7, that's 7 hours of their day is spent out in the field, either prospecting for more clients or being in a house selling the actual product to a homeowner. Now, the difficulty for a lot of our sales reps in the business we're in is the travel time. And so if you are a sales rep and you have to travel for work and you can't do Zooms, that is fine. The only thing I would tell you is to pay very close attention to where you're knocking and where you're working and where you're selling and how much you're driving to get to the next appointment or the next neighborhood. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of places, the geography is inevitable and you have to drive, you have to be in the car. But I would really, really track your time of how much time you're spending in the car and how you can make that better by knocking in this territory instead of this territory. Or if you have an appointment in this town, well, don't knock in this town over here, knock in this town before your appointment and then go to this appointment at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock, right? And so that would make the majority of your day is spent on prospecting and selling. The thing with admin work is a lot of times the admin work that you have to do, the updating CRM or logging stuff, is because there's a problem in the chain when it comes to your company and your CRM and how they built out their sales process. So I actually have an example I want to show you today, which is what our company looked like before we updated our app and before we started investing into our CRM, and now afterwards what it looks like now. So let me show you on the screen here what this looks like. All right, so I think a big thing that people waste their time on as sales reps is admin work. And I actually think the problem for that is not you, the sales rep, that is the sales leader of the company or the company itself. If you are a sales leader or if you are the sales rep, you need to go to your sales leader and tell him to fix the app. And so let me give you guys some data and show our company and what happened and the changes from before we had an app until after. And the thing with admin work is it literally eats out of the sales rep's job. So if you want the sales rep to do a good job, you have to inherently make it easy for him to do his job. And so if you look on the screen here, this right here this is our sales in 2023. This is an 18-month runway. So from June of 2023 to December of 2024, and this was every month. And you can see how inconsistent we are, especially look at these big months where our selling season, if you're in home service, and especially in New York State, is really like March until November are your big months, right? And so if you look here, June, we do 135 sales. Next month, July, we do 99. Next month, we do 170. Back in September, we do 97. Then we do 171. Then we do 94. Why do our numbers go like this so much? It's because when a sales rep goes and sells 15 deals in a month. All of a sudden, next month, he's stuck at home doing all this administration work to try and get the job through the pipeline. And so he can't go out and continue to do his job because he's got to deal with BS. This is the worst thing you can do for a sales rep. This is the biggest problem you can possibly have for a sales rep. If you want high achievers, they will leave your company if you have it like this. So what we did in the beginning of 2025 was we built our own Amplify app, which is the sales rep can now access it right on their phone. They can use everything right on their phone. It's way easier, way simpler, way more intuitive. And so watch what happened to our numbers. If you go 2024, remember this, 99, 170, 97, 171, 94. Huge swings of almost 100 sales a month. Then we go to this year in 2025, 2026, you can see if we start in the same month of June, we go 157, 190, 229, 299, 129, 111. And so we have a consistent growth all the way up, and then we drop off. This is because of the tax credit situation that happened this year. But we don't have huge swings where we go 160 to 90 to 170 to 90. It is 157, 190, 229, 299. It's straight up in a chart. And so 90% of that came from the app and not having to do that administrative BS work. And if we look at the chart from before, from Salesforce, you'll see, again, that's 25% of the admin of what a sales rep's day is like. That's 25% of what a sales rep does in a day is administrative BS. And so we solved that issue. We gave sales reps back 25% of their year, 25% of their month, their week, their day. And all of a sudden, we had this huge increase in sales at the same time frame of the next year. We had 60% more sales. And the other thing is, if you're growing a business, you'll know this too, or if you're on a sales team, it's very common for it to go up and down like this. And that is the worst thing you can do for cash flow and, just dealing with the ups and downs of business. If you can make it where it's much more of a steady line, much better. So number 3, admin work. We spent some time on that because it is the most important and the biggest time waster on here. So if you are the sales leader or if you are a sales rep, I suggest you spend some serious time, effort, energy, money, and resources to create a really good app for your sales team. And so that is what we did, and it changed our business completely because we got back 25% of our time. Next thing is traveling. If you look at our top sales reps, we have a wide variety of some people live and die by Zooms, and some people refuse to do Zooms. If your business can handle it, it is definitely a hack since COVID to run things online on Google Meet or Zoom because you save all of that travel time. I do believe that there's a serious benefit to being in person. So this one's kind of up to you, but if you can do Zooms and you're good on Zooms, do them. If you want to do them, or if you're not good at them, but you want to, get better and start doing them. They're really not that difficult. But if you like the human element and the touch and being in person and being able to sit down with someone face to face, then maybe you just stick and count 10% of your life is going to be travel, and it is what it is, but gain back on the other ones. So that's travel. The other thing is training. Training, like I said before, is not very common for sales reps to do, especially as they get good or better and they've been in the company for a while. Here's my philosophy on training. I'm not saying you need to sit down and spend 3 hours a week role playing every single week until your eyes bleed. I think in the beginning, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year, depending on your industry, you have to do some of that stuff. I think what training turns into the longer you're in the industry is how do you learn more about your product? How do you get better at dealing with the things that you now have to deal with, which is not how do I get better at sales? It becomes, how do I know my product more? How do I get into this new avenue of business? How do I sell this different customer? Or how do I get this different product? Like for solar, a big thing for us was, okay, we've learned how to sell solar. Now, how do we learn how to sell batteries? And so we went and took a batteries end phase training course, and now you're learning that new product. So training is like starting to add more tools to the tool belt so you have more to sell or are more efficient. And so that's what you need to look at if you've been in the game a while. If you're new, all of your training should be spent on how to sell, reading scripts, getting better, personal development. And so the last part to this training is if you are going to travel, to the last point, then you should be training while you're traveling. You should be listening to stuff in the car. And I know it's it's not easy, and it's easy to put something else on, or music or whatever thing you want to listen to, but that is so much time wasted. Personally, I spend 20 hours a week on the road. Either I have to drive an hour and a half to Albany, or I got to drive an hour to an appointment. Every day I'm commuting probably an hour to 2 hours. And so I spend 20 hours a week in the car. I promise, if you looked at my phone log and what I did while I was in the car, I'm either on the phone calling somebody, getting work done, or listening to some kind of podcast that's helping my business in some way. That is the only two things I spend time on when I'm in the car. If not, it's completely wasted time. Last thing is meetings. Okay, if you're a sales manager, real quick, listen. Do not spend time on meetings that do not need to happen. Something that I've learned, this took me so long to learn, 7 years now, where I would just have meetings to have meetings. And that works all well and dandy until you've been doing this a while. And then you have nothing to talk about or nothing exciting, and sales reps no longer want to be at your meeting. And if you have meetings that sales reps don't want to be there for, you're not providing value, you're not making it exciting, you're not doing anything to help that sales rep do their job better. There's no reason to have a meeting. If you look at a sales rep's week, if you look at all the time they spend in the field, let's say they're working 50 hours a week on average. So they're working in the field from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. with an hour lunch in between, let's just say, right? If more than 10% of their time, and that's a high number, 10% is like the max. If more than 10% of their week is spent in meetings, you are literally preventing them from doing their job. If we go back on this data, if 25% of administrative work and you have 10% of their time doing meetings, you took up almost half of their week. They can't even go out and prospect and sell because you're not letting them. And so do not waste a lot of time on meetings. Only have meetings when they're necessary. I know a lot of us have standing meetings, like we have one every Wednesday here in the office. My goal is to make them as short as possible and to give them as much information as quick and as efficient as possible so they can go back and do their job. I don't want to spend an hour and a half on something that I could train on in 20 minutes. And so be careful with that as a manager, and as a sales rep, you should communicate this to your sales manager of, we have meetings. I'm here, 5 hours a week in this office, and I could be here for 30 minutes and get everything I need to know. It's just pointless. And so be careful of this. Don't waste a lot of time in meetings. And last thing is pissing off, or downtime is the polite way to say it, politically correct way to say it. I think everyone does this. I think it's somewhat inevitable. I think if you keep this under 5%, you're probably good. There's so many things on social media about how to stop scrolling, or how to stop, how to be more productive and not waste time and not do this. And there's plenty of other videos you can go and watch on that. If you find yourself all of a sudden you wasting hours and hours a day scrolling on your phone or doing stupid miscellaneous tasks, then you really need to take a look at this. But I would say for most people who are in sales, you just don't have enough time in the day to piss off that much. So usually you're okay. All right, so let's recap this whole video. Problem, data, solution. Problem, 64% of a sales rep's day to day is spent on not selling or prospecting. Huge issue. Explanation or data is because reps have so many other things they could be doing, and sales reps especially are going to take the path of least resistance. All humans are, but especially people in sales. The average sales rep is not going to be a super high Q, super high analytical, very, very detail-oriented person. The average sales rep is not that. They're much more of, a C student or maybe a B student in high school, but they get shit done. So the problem with that is if you don't give them the bumper carts to go down the right path, they're going to spend time bouncing all around. And so if you're a sales rep or you're the sales manager, you need to figure out what can you do on a week-to-week basis. What kind of schedule can you make on a week-to-week basis where you are being the most productive? And let's define productivity. Productivity is what was the output? So how much money did you make at the end of the week when you do X task, and divide it by what is the task you did. So output is the money divided by the task you did. That is your rate of productivity, or the amount of income you're making per hour is, the easiest way to explain it in today's world. And so what I've done, we're actually doing it right now with my team, is we have a spreadsheet, is a time audit sheet. And so all of my managers right now have this sheet that we're working for. Today's Thursday, so I haven't done it yet today, but you can see we're auditing every 30 minutes of our day. I have this for all of my managers. So if you go in here, you can see what managers are doing every single day. Rich hasn't done a good job updating this. Probably gonna talk to him after. But another guy, Ben, you can see what he's doing every 30 minutes. Because the thing is, we don't even realize sometimes what we're spending our time on. And at the end of the week, we're like, yo, I was so busy the whole week and I don't even know what I did. And so for a sales rep, you have to define out what it is that actually makes you money. What is the IPA, the income producing activity, and everything else is just the noise. And you have to mitigate that as much as you can. And so your job as a sales rep is to flip this the other way. You should be spending no less than 60 to 65% of your time on prospecting and selling, and everything else should be the extra miscellaneous. As a sales rep, you have to do admin work, you have to have meetings, you have to do training, you have to do that. But that should be 20 to 30% of your time, and 60 to 70% of your time is spent on actually doing the job, not the other way around. And if you flip that, and you do what I say in this video, and you do these things, you will have a much more successful sales career. The last point is the real solutions, which is invest in a better app. If your CRM is not good and you're wasting a lot of time logging your CRM or uploading it or doing whatever it is that you need to do for your process to go through, you need to go talk to somebody about it. And if you're a manager, you need to figure that out because it is a huge bottleneck. I'm talking about our revenue went up by $20 million because of this one app, because we were able to go from 700 sales in a quarter compared to 400, almost doubling. So invest in an app. And number two, audit your time and your day and your schedule. Name everything. Something that we do on this audit sheet is you can see, if I go into mine, we have tasks and categories. So I only have so many categories I can be doing. Recruiting, training, meetings, selling, coaching, firefighting, fucking off, or maker time. That is the only things I can do on a day-to-day basis. And I'm gonna audit what percentage of my time is spent on each one and what percentage of my time should I be spending on each one. So invest in an app, audit your time, and figure out where you're wasting it. And then ultimately design your day start to back as selling, prospecting, and then everything else will fall in line. But if you put those two in the center focus of what your day-to-day life looks like, you will be much, much, much more successful. And at the end of the day, this is a crazy stat. The fact that 64% of salespeople, 64% of a sales rep's day is spent not selling is a crazy realization that if you do not grab time by the fucking horns and pay attention to what you're doing, you will just slowly slip into being the most inefficient, unproductive person, and your paycheck will result in that. And so a lot of sales is just being intentional with your time. And if you are intentional and you are out prospecting and selling, even if you're not good, but you spend 70% of your week prospecting and selling, you will make way more money than someone who's really good at sales, but is not spending 70% of their time out on the doors. So if you like this video, comment down below. Tell me what your thoughts are and what, if you are gonna audit your time, what that looks like for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.